You're a big fan of virtual reality. This year, The Strain has its own virtual reality experience. Creatively, what has VR opened up for you?
Well, we had a very good experience with VR with Pacific Rim, with the Oculus Rift. And we did another one for The Strain and one more for Crimson Peak. I think what it gives you, it gives you the chance of that immersive, brief narrative in which you can participate of that world. The thing I like the most about VR, honestly, is looking around. It's almost like in video games, where the thing I enjoy about video games, open world video games, big sandbox, is to actually stay in one place and loiter, just be there waiting for something to happen or nothing to happen. That's one of the reasons why Shadow of the Colossus remains one of my favorites. It's a little bit like in the Haunted Mansion at Disneyland. The thing that I love the most is waiting in the gallery in between elevators when I'm alone with the portraits. That's really creepy.
How does VR impact you when you're thinking about universes like The Strain, knowing that you can go in that direction in addition to having the television, comics, and novels?
Well, VR, most of the time VR is, in my experience, brief narratives. I think that it would be interesting to do a long form. Even 30 minutes would be great. But it doesn't impact the way you tell stories in a different medium yet.
It's really in its infancy. How do you see it evolving, VR, especially as creatives like yourself start looking at it for longer form?
Well, I think that the attention span and the capacity to concentrate with every generation changes. We are much more sort of ADD than our parents, and the kids are going to be much more so than us. So I think that one of the things that you do in an immersive world, if you can create a sandbox that is open enough in a VR experience, sort of in the way that you can do in a video game, where you sort of guide the narrative through action and through obstacles and through, things that make you go a certain route and all that, I think you can learn a lot and you can do that.
Pacific Rim got its own video game. What would the Strain video game be if you could do anything?
I think it would be very much an atmospheric game, where you have a city after the fall. The Strigoi are already there, and it's sort of past curfew. So you are left out in the street, and the hint of things running around before you encounter them, making it very atmospheric, very creepy, something like that.
We've seen a lot of video games focusing on vampires over the years. How do you feel video games influence you when you're creating content like The Strain or like movies?
Well, I think that video games, there was a golden period for me on the beginning of the 2000s where I thought the engines and the rendering capacities and the consoles got to a place where you had amazing lighting and amazing art direction, amazing capacity to render these photoreal environments, and there were many color patterns that I loved. That the way some of the video games were lit, the way they were textured, that were great, And then now and then pacing, you envy some of the pacing in video games. As I said, Colossus was like a Terrence Malick movie in a way. It was very meditative, very, very lean, very zen, very beautiful, and then it got really intense for a little bit, And that type of pacing I haven't seen, for example, in a movie, where you go to a very languid period and then it gets really intense, and then it really implicates you.
How are you upping the ante when it comes to the second season of The Strain?
Well, I think that we have the fortune of having a narrative that is really, really very brutal about the main characters and the world. We are not a narrative where the heroes are very successful. They're facing something brutal and enormous, and eventually the stakes grow and grow and grow. So we naturally, that's the way the narrative evolves. It's going to get really, really much worse before it gets better.